Brian of Trifonic, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Native Instruments' Massive. Let me show you what that sounds like. So I'll take a quick look at the signal flow, and then we'll get into making pretty cool bass sound in here. I'll probably do a couple videos on Massive because there's quite a bit to cover. But to start, we've got 3 oscillators over here, a modulation oscillator, noise oscillator, feedback. Then if we move over to the right, we've got 2 filters here that can be either in serial or parallel. You can balance the mix between them. Amplifier section. You have a bypass section where you can route in the one of the oscillators and have it not go through the filter and effects, and have it go directly towards the amplifier stage. And then you've got your master effects here, insert effects. To start, let's take a look at the oscillators, because that's really what I'd like to explore today. And the way it works in Massive is it uses wavetables. There's a bunch of different wavetables that you've got in this menu here. So there's the standard shapes that we're used to: square, saw, sine, so on. And then it has these digital hybrid ones that are pretty cool. It's the one that I've heard a lot of, that I recognize from a lot of dubstep albums and drum and bass, is this scrapyard. So to get it in the right octave here, I'm going to have it minus 24 semitones, just so I can play it back. My keyboard here doesn't really sound like much right now, but I can scroll through its wavetable position with this knob here. So I can hear there's some interesting sounds in there. I'll just go through it real slow. Especially like this first half of it here. Just for my explorations, what I'm going to do is assign this to a control on a Midi controller. So what I'd like to do is assign it actually to a macro Midi control in Massive. Meaning what I can do is assign several knobs that are on here that do different things. So for example, this wavetable position, and when I get to doing a filter cutoff, I can have one knob control that by assigning it to a macro. With the default sound here, this is set to vibrato. I'm going to unassign this, control click, clear macro 1. And then what I want to do is assign macro 1 to wavetable position. So what I can do is just drag on this little arrow thing here and drag it over to wavetable position, and then I can set my range that I want the knob to control by just clicking and dragging up with my mouse, and I can set a range here. So like I was saying earlier, I really like the first half in terms of the positions, and then I can assign this macro control here to a knob on my Midi controller. So I'll do that right now. Control click, Midi learn, and then I'm turning a knob when I move my controller that it's moving on here. And I should hear it too. We can hear that the wavetable position is moving. I've also got different modes in terms of dealing with what they call the intensity of the whatever wavetable I have. Right now it's set to spectrum mode, and what that does is it adds more or less harmonics depending where this knob is. So when I bring this to the left, I have less harmonics. But there's these other ones too, these bend plus, bend minus, and formant. So bend plus is interesting for this particular wavetable. What it does is it changes the speed in which it's reading through different parts of the wavetable. So I'm going to set this to somewhere in the middle. I just kind of like the way it emphasizes the wavetable. So I definitely want to add in a filter. So I'm going to take a look at filter 1 here, and I'm going to choose this daft filter, which is basically, it's a analog modeled low pass filter. Bring down the resonance. what I want to do is I want my same knob to control the cutoff of this filter. So I'm going to drag this control here. So macro knob 1 to, and I can assign it to control some amount of the cutoff. So I just want it to be a small range. Basically, I want to be able to open up the filter as I scroll through the wavetable. So maybe a little bit more. Let's see. And I'll have this be closed more. So that sounds good. The one thing is it's a little bit extreme, although I like it. So what I'd like to do is reintroduce some of the dry sound in here. So what I can do is take advantage of the two filters here, and I can choose between either serial or parallel. Serial meaning that the output of filter 1 leads into the input of filter 2, or parallel being that this oscillator here can feed both filter 1 and 2 separately. So and here's where I choose for oscillator 1 how it's going to route to the filters. So if this is all the way up, it's only going to filter 1, all the way down, only going to filter 2. If I have it in the center here, it's routing the signal to both filters. So that's cool, I want that, and then I just have to set the output on this filter. And really I'm just using this as a pass-through, so I don't have any filter module instantiated here, but I'm just having the signal route through basically a dry signal routed through this second filter spot, and then the mix between these two filters I want to be in the center. So I'm going to have my daft low pass filtered up here, and then the dry signal coming through. So what that allows me to do is you can hear me adjusting the wavetable position here, and I get my filtered version and I get my dry version happening. That way I can have a lot of movement in the sound, but I'm not losing any area of the spectrum. Next, I'm going to add in one of the master effects here. So I'm going to have the tube, classic tube. It's basically overdrive. Actually, this default setting's pretty nice. And then just to give this all a little bit more space, use this dimension expander, which is kind of like a really short reverb, which is nice because it doesn't get in the way of the sound, but does add a little dimension to it. So cool. Now we're pretty close. I want to add some Unison Voices to this just to make this even thicker, bigger. So I can go to my voicing page here. I can choose the maximum number of voices, 16, and then I can choose how many voices per each note. So I want 4 Unison Voices per note. It's going to increase the volume substantially, so I'm going to turn down my master volume just before even. And then what I want to do is maybe I'll add a little bit of this spread to it. And that just spreads out the voices a bit, detunes them against each other. And then if I also wanted this to be monophonic and have glide, I could also do that in the voicing area here. I can set this to monophonic. And on this oscillator tab is where I can set my glide parameters. So now let's check out what we've got. That's a pretty expressive bass sound, definitely nice. And then another thing I can add is there's a plugin by Sine Vibes that's a wave shaper called Transformer, and basically has a really simple interface, and you can just get some nasty wave shape distortion. So definitely to get the more 9 Inch Nails-y kind of sound out of it. So that's a bit harsh of sound, although I actually do really like that a lot. But what I want to do is I wanted something really bright to send through a wet reverb. So what I have is a really distorted sound like this going through a wet reverb. So this is an 8-second reverb. I've got EQ on it to narrow, to make it a more narrow band.